Well, it's story time. I don't know how long this is going to be. I'm going to try to not make it be voluminous, but I make no promises, except for the promise that if you want to jump ahead, you can look at the timestamps that are in the description because I give you 6 things that you need to know or do after I tell this story. Like I said, if you want to jump ahead, you can jump ahead, but at least watch, I'll say, the first 2 minutes of it because this is going to tell you why I needed to do a bunch of stuff that I had to do. That make any sense? I don't know. So here's the deal. On January 14th, that was a Sunday, had a power outage. It was kind of a heavy wind day and it was raining hard and the winds were like between 25 to 40 mile an hour with 40 mile an hour gusts, but it was a windy day and the power went out. The power was out for about an hour. We don't get a lot of power outages here, but on that day we had a power outage. I didn't think anything about it. You don't usually have them in the winter, believe it or not. Even during blizzards, you usually do really well, but there it was, had a power outage. So when the power came back on, I didn't immediately come and look at my computer because I had a, a power supply that was plugged into. So, I wasn't really worried about it. But then when I eventually came in, the computer wouldn't come back on. Nothing. I did my few little tricks that I thought I might be able to do something with it. Nope. Took it to a different room. Nope. It wasn't happening. I spent, I will say, probably 6 or 7 hours trying to get that thing to work. I would take a break like 10 or 15 minutes here and there, but I tried to get that thing to work and it just wasn't going to work. And I was in this state of mind. It's like, oh goodness, am I going to have to buy a new power supply? Do I need a new fan? I didn't want to do that. The reason I didn't want to do those kinds of things is that I had done some maintenance on it or had maintenance done on it back in 2015, where I'd had the power supply and the fan replaced. But this was somewhat different. I bought this computer the last week of 2008, and it was a souped up gateway, you know, this terminology, but still, it was fancy. It did all this weird stuff, and I loved that computer. So like I told you, I had changed the power supply. I did everything else. And in 2018, October 2018, I had to get a whole new hard drive because a Windows 10 update totally wiped out my drive. And so I had to start all over. Now, you would think I would have learned some lessons at that point, and I didn't. And this is where some of those tips I'm going to give you at the end are going to come into play. Anyway, I had a backup computer. My friend Scott had brought me a computer over the summer. It's a lot newer than mine, but it's a 2018 and I wanted to use that only for business purposes. I've been an independent consultant for a long time, but I've been looking for a stay-at-home job and a lot of those were going to probably want me to use either they were going to send me information on it or they want me to, hook up to some other computer system offline. I was going to work remotely. And I wanted to have a business computer with just business stuff. So I really hadn't used it all that often. I had loaded a couple of things on there so I could, check email, Word, Microsoft Office products and things like that. But I didn't put anything else on it. I mean, I did put a browser on there, but that doesn't count. So I didn't know what I was going to do. And before I went to bed Sunday night, I said, you know what? I need to get back online as soon as possible. So I'm going to take that computer, bring it into my real office and take my other computer and, kind of put it in storage because part of me is thinking I want to revamp that thing one of these days. It's a stupid thing, but you never know. You get emotionally attached to your stuff. So I did that. Woke up early Monday morning, and I start moving stuff around. I had to take a whole bunch of stuff off my desk. That was problematic because it was a big computer. And I have stuff all over my desk, probably like a lot of other people do. A lot of wires, a lot of different stuff. And so I had to get all that stuff out of here. And then I had to take my computer, which I had actually opened up the inside for, and I was doing all these things in it. And I took it into what is supposed to be my backup office. And then I got that computer in there and I brought it in here. And it's the first time I had both computers together. And I said, boy, this computer's a lot smaller than what I had. Well, it turns out it's a mini computer because I looked up the specs. It's a Lenovo mini computer. I didn't even know there was such a thing. So one of the things about a mini computer is that you don't have all the ports. You don't have as many ports as you will have on a regular computer. So I had to figure out how am I going to hook everything up properly. And it was getting on my nerves. I really wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do everything. And I was able to do everything, but the biggest problem I had was with my monitor because it turned out that the mini computer needed a different cord to hook up to the monitor, totally different monitor. I didn't want to bring in the same one that's in my other office because that's a 24-inch, but the one in my office is a 32-inch. That's the only thing that I had to do something different with. Luckily, I had a cord. I had to look around for it, but I found the cord, and then I was able to do everything properly, and I booted up the computer. It took a while to boot up because obviously it must have known I had other stuff. I have a docking station, and what I decided to do was put my storage drive, which is external. I'd had a storage drive with my other computer, and I only had one drive in it. So I put that in there, and then I took the C drive out of the other computer and put it in back. So that way I figured I'll be able to access all my stuff. But it still took a while for everything to load because it just took a while for it to load. And then it finally loaded, and I'm thinking, okay, well, this is a good start. And then I realized I don't know what to start with because I don't have any programs on here. I had, like I said, I had Word, I had Excel, I just a couple of other things, but a lot of the stuff I didn't have. Luckily, I had Firefox, but even then, I didn't know what to do. So it took me a while to, figure out, okay, I've at least got a process to get started with. And then I started noticing that there were things that weren't working. I started loading, new programs on it. I had programs that I had stored on both my external drive and that I had on my original C drive. So, I have a folder that's called programs. I started trying to load all these things and a lot of them aren't working well. They're not working properly. I installed Windows Media Player and that was kind of messed up. And I said, none of this makes any sense. What's going on here? So basically, I spent the entire week, this was last week, basically putting 16 to 18 hours, well, okay, probably more like 16 hours, uh, trying to get this thing to work right. And none of it was working right. I was irked. And, you know, that's what happens. I'm so used to sitting here at the computer doing stuff and being able to, maybe get to bed, usually around 11 o'clock, play a couple of games of Sudoku on my tablet and just to chill a little bit. And then I'd been sleeping well. I did not sleep well um, all the way through, I think I can say, well, last night. I'm doing this on a Wednesday night, so that would have been a Tuesday night. I had been getting less than 5 hours of sleep. One of those nights, I got less than 4 hours of sleep. It was just so irked that I couldn't get everything done. And I was doing a lot of research online. Luckily, we got Google so you can look things up. DuckDuckGo, the same thing. And some things I could address and some of them just weren't going to happen. And with some of the things I did last Saturday or this past Saturday, the computer basically said, leave me alone. I quit. I still had power, but I couldn't get anything to work. So what did I have to do? I had to do a repair, which means I had to actually look it up on my tablet. I brought my tablet in here to figure out how to do a repair. This is stuff I used to know. I used to fix computers. I never built a computer, but I used to fix computers. I, got paid to fix people's computers. I was one of those guys who loved, opening up the thing and looking through here and there and doing the stuff in the hard drive. I loved that. I'll say the late 2000s, the late 2000s, very early 2010s. I did that often. And that was kind of cool. But I could not remember a lot of stuff. I hadn't had to do any of that stuff in, more than 5 years. And you would think that, well, it's only 5 years ago. I should remember everything. You know what? I'm 64. I've had other things going on. Had to take care of my mother for a few years. Had to do all the kind of stuff. Had no real clue. So I ran the repair a couple of times and I had to run it twice. And I was able to get access back to the stuff that I had access to. And then I went to a hockey game. We have a local AHL hockey, American Hockey League team. And my friend who gave me the other computer said, look, come to the game, chill for a bit. So I went to the game, had some nachos with cheese. It's the only place I can ever get nachos with cheese. And they won, so I've got a 4-game winning streak. And then I came back home and I came right to the computer, tried to do a couple of things. Said, you know what, let it go. We will attack it again the next morning. So Sunday, I'm right back at the computer again, trying to do all this stuff. And a lot of it's just not working. I'm frustrated as sin. But I was doing some things as far as writing down where I was putting things or creating files to put things in because I didn't want to lose new things that I was putting in. I wanted to know where they were so that if something happened to those, then I can, try it again. So we get to Monday. And Monday, I'm trying to do stuff and stuff isn't working. And then I had one of these weird epiphanies. I said, oh, what? I wonder if the computer my friend gave me two things. One, is it Windows 10 or Windows 11? And two, did he create an administrator account on the computer? So I texted him, asked these questions, and Tuesday morning I get the answer. The answer says, yes, it's got an administrator. You should have access to that. And he said he gave me a piece of paper on it. That was this summer. I don't know where a little piece of paper is. But then he told me it was Windows 10, so at least I had something like that. And then I said, I wonder if I can sign in as an administrator. Turns out, not only could I sign in as an administrator, but I was also, the main thing said that I was an administrator. But in order to fix certain things, you have to sign in as administrator, even if it's the same name and the same password. You have to sign in as the administrator so that you can get access to stuff you couldn't get access to before. As a for instance, there's a program that's called Take Ownership. And what that basically means, if you know how to use it, is that if there's a file that you're trying to get to, but you can't because it's blocked, because, Microsoft blocks a lot of things, you can do Take Ownership. You can go to that folder, you hover over it, you hit the right click, and you've got Take Ownership. And then it will do all the stuff so that you can get to all those files. Well, once I signed in as administrator, I was able to get to everything. So almost everything. There's a couple things I still can't get into, and now I kind of know why. But I was able to get to everything I needed, and things started going a lot more smooth. And I was ecstatic by that, except for something that's happened now that I have no idea if I'm going to be able to fix it on my own. I've gone to WordPress support, WordPress.org support to ask a question. Hopefully they'll answer me because one of my blogs I can't log into. As a matter of fact, it basically started fussing at me saying, no, you've tried too many times. You have to wait 72 hours. I don't want to wait 72 hours. That's my main blog. That's the one that I write on the most. Just can't force stuff like that. But I've been able to find ways around everything, almost everything. I still have a lot of things to do. I have a way to go, but I actually slept 6.5 hours when I woke up this morning. So maybe I have relieved myself of some of the angst that I've had. So anyhow, that's almost all of the story, because here's the beginning of the story. Actually started on New Year's Day, when I was basically here in my office, and I think it was like 11 degrees outside. It was cold, and I decided to turn on my kerosene heater. So I turned on my kerosene heater, and then about a minute later, I got a phone call. Not expecting a phone call. It's from a friend of mine who I went to college with. I said, "Oh, cool, hi." So when I talk on the phone, I walk around the house. So I got my portable phone. I'm walking around the house. I'm walking about 45 minutes. And then I thought I heard something from my office. I get to the office and find out that the kerosene heater is still on full blast. My other computer, the fan is blowing like crazy. It sounds like it's in major distress. I look at the temperature, and the temperature shows that it's above 100 degrees in this room. That was scary. So I shut down the computer. I turned off the kerosene heater. I put a fan in the door to try to blow some of that hot air out of here. And I think that's what weakened my other computer, so that when the power went out, came back on, it basically said, nah, I'm done. I can't do anything more. So that's just life. Anyway, that's the story part. If you watched all this, thank you. If you didn't and you just jumped to the tips, here you go. So the first tip is store files, written files, or other stuff. Store some of that stuff on an external drive. I tended to save a whole bunch of stuff on desktop. It was just so easy. It was right there. And I always, knew where I was going to be able to get to it. You can get to your desktop by actually looking at your desktop, or in my case, I get into the Explorer, program, and I access desktop that way so that my desktop's clear. I hate seeing all kind of stuff all over that desktop. But since I didn't have to do that, I put a lot of stuff on the desktop, wiped it all out. So now I'm doing something where, yes, I'm putting some files on the desktop, but I'm putting copies either into Dropbox, which basically, luckily, I got Dropbox totally back the way I needed to. And I have the external drive that's in the docking station. So I'm putting things, I created another folder for stuff, and I'm putting in there also. So that's very important. And by the way, if you have other files, program files, or, like I said, I have a folder that's called programs. It doesn't hurt to put those in another drive, name it programs, or whatever you want to call it. It never hurts to back stuff up like that. Number 2, keep a running list of programs you're using. Because I was so distressed, and I was trying to get things working and stuff didn't want to work, that I forgot the program. I forgot the name of the program I used to basically get into the internet. Like to get on the web pages, if you're going to load stuff up or take stuff down or whatever. I wanted to see if I could get get that blog I mentioned earlier, if I went in through the back door, which basically says you do the file transfer protocol thing and you go in. I couldn't remember the name of the program, and I searched everywhere. I just had no clue. And I don't know how I figured it out, but I finally figured it out. It turns out I had a bunch of programs that I couldn't remember the names. I couldn't remember. I had a photo program, for instance. I've been using that photo program for at least 10 years. No clue. I have no clue what it's called. So I think that's a good one. Everyone's going to say, well, I'll know what I always do. Will you really? You might not. If you're someone like me and you go online looking for something else, at one point earlier in the year, for instance, I thought that I was having trouble with my Windows Media program. Turned out it was my eyes, but I was having trouble with it. So I downloaded some other software. It's called Music B, but I ended up not having to use it. Still, I have it on the computer, and I thought about uploading it and using that because you can change colors on it. It actually looks kind of cool. I saw the video on it, but okay for now. But keep a running list of programs you're using so that if your computer dies out, you can remember everything that you were using beforehand. Here's number 3. Don't expect you're going to immediately remember how everything works like you used to. This was my thing where I said I used to fix computers. I used to know how to load all these different things on it. I knew a ton of computers. And just, it escaped me. Things started coming back a little bit here and there, but it was just that frustration that I couldn't recall it at the time I wanted to recall it. Don't beat yourself up over that. Yes, I'm a little older, but probably even 10 years ago, yeah, okay, for some of y'all, 54 would have been too old, but still, it's possible that I wouldn't have remembered any of that stuff back then. At least in 2018, when the Windows 10 update wiped out the hard drive, I had still been doing computer stuff, so I knew all the steps I needed to do. But that's just how that works. Here's number 4. Verify you have total access to your computer unless it's beyond your knowledge. This is where the thing came in where I was just sitting there and I said, hey, I wonder if I have administrative privileges. Because had I thought about that the day that I brought this in here, then I would have known, let me get those administrative privileges. And I would have probably given myself a week's worth of, well, I don't want to say no problems, but the problems that I had. It just never occurred to me until, I had that epiphany. So, most people won't get that. If you buy a computer somewhere, and the only place I know where you can actually get computers now is Best Buy. I don't know where else anyone can get computers. No, I really don't know. There used to be tons of stores. But, when they preload everything, so that you can go home and just turn it on and you can do whatever you want to, they block a whole lot of things that they don't want you in because most people aren't savvy enough to understand it. But you still are going to probably find other things that you want to load onto your computer. And if stuff goes wrong, you might not know how to get into it. It doesn't hurt to have as much access as you can based on your skills. So there's one. And number 5, if you need help, get help. I probably could have reached out to a couple of other people to try to get some help. My friend who actually brought me the computer, he is an Apple guy. So he's got a Mac, he's got the iPhone, he's got the iTablet or whatever that thing is called. He wasn't going to be able to help me. As a matter of fact, he asked one of the other people where he works to wipe the drive and load Windows 10 because that wasn't his, level of experience. So, sometimes you just need to call for help. And I did call him for help. I didn't need help in doing anything with the computer specifically, but I needed to ask him some questions here and there as things came up. And then here's number 6. This is probably the most important, although it doesn't go directly to the computer. This stuff in general. You have to chill every once in a while. Chill here and there. Don't be like me, because once you get frustrated and you can't think properly, you're not going to get anything done. Like I said, I didn't sleep much. I was exhausted and I couldn't do anything else. I wouldn't do anything else. I didn't write any blog posts. I didn't do a video. I did nothing for a week and a half. I've done a few things today, but I've been more mad that I haven't been able to break into my own blog with my own passwords and stuff. I don't know what that's all about. And I'm not going to tell you right now until I find out if a postulation I have comes true. And I hope to find that out within a couple of days. And that's my story. Yep, this is long, but there it is. Like I said, if you jumped ahead so you could just hear the tips, I think those are worthy. And if you feel they weren't, well, let me know. Or keep them to yourself. Hey, I lounged. I have not worn this ever in a video, and I've had this for 10 years. So you should feel proud. Anyway, my name is Mitch Mitchell. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope that I have some good sleeping nights for the rest of this week. Y'all take care.